folks, it's Ben here, and I thought it was probably a good time to put a little update on this channel and explain to you what is going on here. As you probably know, the only other video on this channel at this point is a film about a washing machine falling in love in the woods. And I am taking the new channel in a new direction. And I wanted to explain a little bit about why that is. I'm a filmmaker first and foremost, and for all of these years, this channel has been a place to put my films. And Final Spin, that washing machine film, was a film I made quite a while ago now, about 5 years ago-ish. And it's done really well on YouTube. It surprised me a little bit, actually, because for about a year and a half, nothing happened. And then I came back to the video and found it had a couple of million views, and mostly from parts of the world, some parts of the world I've not even been to. The film doesn't feature any speaking or anything like that, so it's in theory an international film. So anyway, for one reason or another, it did really well, and I was really excited about that. So, I've been putting videos on this channel for a long time. None of them did as well as Final Spin. But anyway, I applied for monetization on the channel when I first became aware that it was doing well, which was refused because a few videos on the channel from a long time before that had copyrighted music on them. So they, in theory, had a copyright strike. And so the monetization was refused. Now, for a while, I didn't do anything about that, and I still thought that the channel was basically just going to be a place for films to live. But eventually, I realized that actually I wasn't really doing as much of that kind of thing anymore. Partly because I've been in my free time, I'm a filmmaker first and foremost. I've been pitching for a lot of TV work, and I've been pushing that a lot, and everything else has kind of stopped in the meantime. So that wasn't really happening, and the channel that originally was there to host my film stuff wasn't really being that anymore. So I took the decision to basically delete everything else off the channel and just leave Final Spin and then reapply for monetization, because what I realized is I've got this incredible gift, this opportunity that Final Spin has afforded me, which is that, I didn't know Final Spin was going to do what it did. I'm really pleased that it did, and I'm pleased that so many people have enjoyed it. That is fantastic. But the other thing it's done is it's passed this channel past the monetization threshold and meant that I had this opportunity to turn the channel into something that was a little bit more serious and a bit more focused. And so that left me with a pretty big question, and one that I didn't think I was going to be asking myself, which is, okay, I've got this channel and I've got this opportunity, so what do I do with it? And to be honest, it freaked me out a little bit, because having been making films all my life, I had this YouTube channel that was like a gift. It was ready to go and become something. And I didn't know what to put on the channel. And that was a very strange and slightly unsettling feeling, actually, because it kind of made me question, who I actually am. Because it sounds strange but my whole life films have been kind of my thing. And I was kind of thinking, well, if films are my thing, then why am I having so much trouble figuring out what I should make films about? And, around the same time, so COVID hit, and I had a lot of free time to think about that, which was a good thing and a bad thing. But actually, overall, it was a really good thing, because what it made me realize is that there's one other thing in my life that's been as constant as filmmaking the whole time. And it's so strange how sometimes you can have a constant like that, something that's been there like your shadow the whole time, in a good way. And you can have not really noticed it before. And it's something that I do so naturally, just like with filmmaking, that I've been doing since I was sort of 7 or something. So it's such a natural thing. But equally, this other thing is something I do very naturally. And I hadn't really given it the credit in my life for having been such a big part of actually who I am. And that thing is inventing games. And now, I'm not talking about computer games. When you say games, it's funny how that word has come to mean video gaming. I'm talking about more like real world games and experiences. And ever since I was a kid, I would, set up games and things to do in my garden, and then I would go down the road and invite the other kids to come and play my game and see, if they liked it. It would be it'd be like an obstacle course, or it would be like a simple sort of experience, or there'd be something to do with jumping in paddling pools and things like this, kid stuff. but it continued to be a theme. I actually was teaching parkour for a while, and it became obvious immediately that the best way to teach parkour to kids, in my opinion, was to basically invent games that meant that they had to kind of use parkour. So we would kind of teach parkour. We would teach some of the basic foundational maneuvers, and we would try and get them a little stronger and things like that, and get them basically on their feet. And then we would basically just the class would kind of just descend into playing games, which is exactly how it should be. And what I realized quite quickly is that the kids were turning up mainly for the games. And I feel great about that. But it was also something that wasn't immediately obvious that was how it was going to run. But it did. And so for quite a long time, through from when I was about sort of 17, having started parkour in sort of 2003, by the time I was about 14 then, by the time I was 17, believe it or not, we were some of the most experienced people after only 3 years in. But anyway, so we started teaching, and we taught kids for a lot of years. And then I actually taught students at a local university as well. All the way through that, the game design and inventing and playing real world games in teams or individuals or whatever it is, challenges, all this kind of stuff was the key way that we were actually teaching parkour. And then so kind of since then in my more sort of like adult life, I guess, I spent quite a lot of time developing a project called Tanatu, which was basically the idea of, can you gamify helping people? So can you take people who basically want to do something about making the world a better place, but don't know how to do that? And can you make a game out of that so that actually people get together and, first and foremost, they're kind of getting together to play the game, but actually as they play the game, they realize that it's really fun because they're making a difference to something. And I didn't really know what the difference should be specifically. I just knew that it had to be something positive, and that would be really cool. And there's other examples of this as well. So there's things like plogging. I think it's called blogging, but it's litter picking mixed with jogging. So it's a borderline whether we can kind of call that a game or not. But it kind of is a game. I guess it's more of an activity. But anyway, along that theme, I wanted to see if I could gamify helping other people in whatever way that meant. Anyway, so this is all kind of projects that have passed and kind of gone under the bridge sort of thing. So anyway, what I realized is that in one way or another, and in plenty more ways than the ones I mentioned, inventing games and experiences and thinking about how people interact, with themselves, with a challenge, with other people, has been a theme since I can remember, alongside filmmaking. And yet, the game design stuff, I didn't know I was doing it. It was kind of just happening to facilitate other things and to support the other goals I had and the other things I wanted to do. So this thing has actually been knocking around for a really long time. And then I had this situation with Final Spin and the YouTube channel, and kind of realized that I had this incredible gift of having a channel that was pretty much ready to go and could be quickly built into a fairly, a small but fairly established channel. And so it seemed like an obvious fit because, inventing games and working with people in that way is one of the things I'm most passionate about. I am thinking about it all the time. It's the kind of thing I do in my downtime. So if I've got nothing to do, I struggle to relax. I struggle to be on holiday. I find that very difficult. I'm rarely not thinking about something. Is that the right way around? But basically, if I'm doing nothing, what I'm usually doing is designing games. Most of them never get to see the light of day. Some of them have got to see the light of day. Things like, I've invented like a encoding kind of language, like a game that you would play sort of on paper, which is like writing and breaking codes by encoding English or written English into graphic characters. Anyway, so basically it's something that comes super naturally to me. So I had this great opportunity to take that passion of mine and turn it into something a bit more serious and to kind of run with it. and see what I could make of it. And so that brings us to now, where I'm sitting here having just recorded the first video for this channel, except for this one, which will go up first. And this signifies the transition of this channel from being something about filmmaking to still filmmaking, but in support of real world games. And this is the term I'm using, real world games. Think about that. And I can see this as something that is getting a lot of traction recently. The idea of virtual reality is a really big deal. Augmented reality. We're playing physical games more than ever by moving around and with other people. And I think that's all fantastic. I guess I just crave to play games in actual reality, which kind of takes us into an interesting area because, why don't people do that? There's no doubt that we all do it when we're kids. We play games to learn. We play games just for fun. It's how we get to grips with the world. And it seems to stop. And, there's this idea of, do you stop playing because you grow up, or do you grow up because you stop playing? And actually, I think that culturally, especially in this country, for adults to be allowed to play is actually quite rare. In fact, it's one reason I think why so many adults play computer games, because that is a forum and a world in which you're actually allowed to go play and be whoever you want to be. And yet I can see a change starting to happen. And I feel like we're right at the front edge of that, where actually it's becoming a lot more acceptable for adults to be allowed to go play proper, like tag and stuff like that, like proper play. And actually it's becoming quite popular for fitness as well. So there's a lot going on. There's a lot of talk around education as well, and gamification and, learning through play. So I think it's a really interesting time, and I can see quite a big change starting to happen with how we look at playing games. So I feel like this term real world games is necessary because most people would think of computer games when they hear games. But I think it's necessary because we're sort of starting a new kind of culture here. This stuff gets me so excited because this has the ability to change so many things. And to be really fun and really entertaining at the same time. So the idea behind this channel is really to put this out into the world and say, hey, real world games are a thing. You're allowed to play them, whoever you are. I don't mind who you are. We can all get, some enjoyment and some social interaction and stuff like that from playing games. And that's totally on the table now. I think things are going that way anyway. So this channel is really about, first of all, saying that. Secondly, I want this to turn into a community. And I think this is quite a long-term thing. I'm finding it quite hard to tell because I'm not sure if there are kind of more of you out there, because I've always sort of just been one of very few people I'm aware of who kind of does this and, wants to invent and play games. But I guess I'm hoping that what I'm going to find is that out there on YouTube that you are somebody who is actually interested in kind of refining this art and actually building and designing games that work in the real world, that are really well balanced and really fun to play. So I'm really hoping to build some sort of community. Now, I'm finding it quite hard to imagine just how long that, or how quickly that might happen. I feel like it's probably going to be a fairly long-term thing, but if I find the support is there, then I'm thinking that we can get a forum going and stuff like that. Now, so that being as it may be. So COVID, okay, so all of those ideas are fine, and they're all sitting there, and I've been thinking about this stuff for a good while, and now this is the beginning of that story. But so COVID happens, right? So what am I going to do with the channel? So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to start releasing videos that are discussing games and the idea of what is a game. When is something a game? Why do we like games? Why do they work? And look even into the mind and stuff like that. even to look at other examples of games that already exist and sort of say, well, what is it exactly about that makes that so wildly popular? I mean, even looking at computer games, you take something like League of Legends. You know, there are more monthly players for League of Legends than there are people in the UK. So what is it about this game? You know, I find this so interesting. And if you can kind of bottle it, you know, if you can understand these things and wield these kind of tools, then you can create games that really captivate people. And I love that idea. So the first thing I'm going to do is start putting out videos weekly about these topics, and, you know, basically just stuff that really gets me thinking, stuff that I find really interesting. And it's pretty much all to do with kind of the design of games, real world games this is. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. The second thing is that I want to develop a website that becomes a resource and a place where people can discover and learn to play games. Now, this is the kind of thing that, you know, could absolutely be for adults, but also would be a resource for scout and guide groups. You know, if there's anyone out there who's interested in sort of talking about that, or you run a scout or a guide group, I would like to talk to you, because I want to develop this resource. And I want this to become something that is a go-to. So it contains such a rich selection of well-balanced and well-thought-out games for people with all abilities, for people from all backgrounds, and in a variety of styles as well, playing styles. So some of them are big and energetic, and some of them are, you know, individual and thoughtful and logical or arty. So I think the diversity should be really high, and I want this to become a resource. Something that people really love coming back to, and, you know, handpicking which games you want to play today, basically. So that's the kind of other side of it. So, you know, we've got community and we've got this resource. And then, you know, thirdly, I want to create a channel that is genuinely entertaining. So I've got this idea of, you know, doing kind of discussion videos and talking about the kind of the concept of games and things like that. But I also want to show videos of games being played. So gameplay videos. And for this, I want you to think streaming. So imagine, you know, you're watching somebody play a game streaming. Well, why can't we do this for real world stuff? I mean, obviously it wouldn't necessarily be live. It would be a recorded thing potentially to start with. But, you know, my immediate thought was, well, I want to see someone kind of playing a game and kind of talking about their experience as they play the game in the same way that a streamer would, but live in the real world, like in a city. You know, can you imagine that? I think that would be really cool to see. So yeah, the third thing is I want it to be entertaining, and I want people to be able to tune in and see this week's match between these people, and, you know, have little competitions and things like that. So I guess to sum up this update, and I want to do these updates kind of monthly to keep you in the loop, I guess, with how this channel is going, and share some of my, you know, broader thoughts on some of the topics and things like that. But to sum up, I mean, this is a pretty big change for me, and it's still very much filmmaking. You know, I'm still using that every day. But in the middle now, front and center, is this passion that I have. And I've realized I've always had for designing games and experiences for people. So what I hope is that, first of all, that you're still with me at this point, and that was all in some way interesting. But what I really hope is that you, my subscribers first and foremost, but anyone who's watching this, wants to kind of come with me on that. And if you don't, that's fine. If this isn't for you, that's fine. I'm not ever going to ask you to subscribe or anything like that. In fact, I only want you to subscribe if you're genuinely really interested in this, you know, like I am. Otherwise, that's fine. But what I'm asking, I suppose, is for you to come along this journey a little bit, because I want this to be just a bit more than a channel. I want this to be a culture, and I want to start this culture of people who want to meet other people playing entertaining, exciting, you know, thought-provoking games, and just have a lot of fun, basically charging around and, you know, playing some fun tag-like games and stuff like that. So yeah, I recognize there's a bit of a change for the channel, and obviously I've got a lot of subscribers on this channel on the basis of the work I've done previously. It's really up to you guys if you want to kind of come along. I hope you do, because I think it's going to be pretty entertaining, and I'm going to try and keep the quality as high as I can. I've been doing a lot of work trying to look at the consistency already, even before having released stuff. And actually, I've got to say thank you to some people who've been reviewing some test videos I've made, and that has been massively helpful. I've actually been through the process with the first video about 3 times. Really want this to be a consistent place, and I want the discussion stuff to really feel like a mix between sort of facts and exploration as well as opinion. Because I do have a lot of thoughts and passion for this topic, and I really want to start a discussion. So if you don't agree with what I say, I want you to just come back at me and just say, hey, I don't agree with that. I think this. And if you do agree, then cool, that's fine. So yeah, that's what I want it to be. I recognize this is a pretty big change in the channel, and I really hope that you kind of want to come with me into this new area that I'm kind of, reaching out into. So that's about it for this update. I'm going to drop the first video a day from now, and I'm really excited. It's a fairly kind of opinionated kind of piece. It's about a topic which I know quite a bit about, which is World Chase Tag. There's a game, and indeed a sport, that there's a lot to talk about, I think. So starting out with that, I really hope you're going to want to come on this journey with me. And here I am, I guess, doing what I really care about, potentially for the first time, truly. And I'm really excited to see where it goes. So thanks for being here. I'll catch you on the next one.